Hello, friends, and thanks for listening to the Capital City Soccer Show, your independent source for everything Austin FC. We have a big show today. We're going to have an interview with the technical director for the Austin FC Academy, Dr. Juan Delgado. We're also going to talk about Austin FC's first ever designated player signing, who is Cecilio Dominguez. My name is Landon Cottom. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jeremiah Bentley, and I want to start this conversation by talking about our little chat with Matthew McConaughey last week. So what did you think about that? Was that what you expected it to be?
It was
when he showed up with no shirt on and a beanie, like that was Pete McConaughey.
Yeah, McConaughey-tastic. Yeah, it's for those of you who haven't heard about this somehow, Matthew McConaughey hosted a kind of a Q&A meet and greet for members of Austin Anthem and of Los Verdes. And so we log in and everyone's on group chats. Like, we're in the waiting room. Like, oh, are y'all in yet? Oh, I'm not in either. Okay, cool. It's just starting late. And a few minutes late, it starts up. McConaughey pops up wearing Austin FC beanie, no shirt. And we couldn't see below that. We don't know if he was wearing anything else at all, but the only thing we could see was an Austin FC beanie. So, I wouldn't have expected or hoped for anything else. So I was pretty pleased with that part of it.
Yeah, when I started the commentary on it, somebody asked me, was I surprised or disappointed? I'm like, no, this is great. This is everything I hoped it would be. And I think we talked about this. My wife's not a huge soccer fan, but she was in rapt attention for that entire hour of Q&A for some reason. And it was just, yeah, he was everything you wanted him to be. And it was really, the focus was on, as the Minister of Culture, what he thought the game day experience would be like. And, it was kind of a question and answer. And it was kind of just a rambling stream of consciousness discussion, but it was good. I mean, it was fun. I mean, I never thought, when we started what we're doing, when we started this like journey to Austin FC, that I'd be on the phone on a video with 200 people in McConaughey, just listening to him riff on everything about fan culture. Right.
Yeah, it was, I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but I used to just of course I knew who Matthew McConaughey was, but I didn't think that much of him or about him. I just, like, oh, this goofy actor or whatever. But I think one thing you learn about him in these moments where you get to hear him speak for longer periods of time is he's not a stupid person. You can tell he's like a pretty sharp person. He's maybe a little bit of a crazy person, but he's pretty intelligent and like he knows how to put on a show. And so you can tell in his answers to some of the fans' questions that he may not know. He may not be the most knowledgeable person about soccer specifically. He knows enough about it to talk about it a little bit. But as far as just like creating an experience and creating a spectacle, he's very well versed in that. And like there are several moments where he, just kind of talking about his vision for what he wants it to be like. It was pretty impressive to just listen to him talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you hit on a really good point on that too, because we prepared, we submitted questions in advance, and I thought, like with a lot of these, you kind of go in with this preloaded set of questions, and they stretch that time out as much as possible to like not actually take live questions. This is my secret I'm telling you about most panels. But they shut it down early, and he took a lot of live questions from members of the audience and did a really good job of having a relatively informed, and ready answer on things that some of them were about, culture and being inclusive and sort of like the game day environment. And I thought from that part of it, I thought he was really good about really being thoughtful and understanding beyond the show, like the Austin overall vibe that he wanted to help create.
Yeah, I completely agree. And another thing we were kind of talking about off air was how James Ruth, the marketing director for Austin FC, would kind of, I think you said, translate his McConaugheyisms into English whenever he felt like he needed to, because McConaughey would like trying to express this big idea and maybe didn't know the terminology that you would use for it in a soccer environment, and or maybe just from like conversations they had before, and James would come in and say, I think what he's trying to say is this, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
For sure. He reeled it back in whenever the time called for it, and I really appreciated that. But overall, I thought it was a really good experience. And it was happy to be a part of it.
Just a lot of fun, right? Like,
Yeah.
we didn't learn a lot. We didn't like, I don't think necessarily nothing big came out of that thing. It came out of that call from me saying like, oh, I have a really good idea of how the team's going to play, or like what this franchise is going to be like. But it's really freaking cool to just be on a Zoom call with Matthew McConaughey for an hour. So if nothing else, it was a lot of fun and a cool thing for him and the club to organize.
Yeah, and everybody, there was a ton of like all the Instagram, all the Twitter, it built the excitement, which I guess ultimately that's really all we're trying to do, right? Is get people fired up about play in 2021.
Yeah, speaking of excitement, Austin FC is sold out of all of their general tickets. So I think it would be an understatement to say that the fans aren't excited about this team. So there's from what we're hearing, there are still supporter section tickets left. Jeremiah, do we have an idea of how many there are, or like how soon those are expecting to sell out?
So I have not heard anything about that. I don't think we're there, but one thing I did notice today is this makes sense, but when you deposit, you can make a $50 deposit, right? Because that's all you can do, because the premium seats are gone. And there's no like supporters or general option anymore because general's gone. So I think now if you just go make a deposit, it's just effectively like you're going to be in supporters, you're going to be on the waiting list. So I would think that, given that, and given that they're at Andy talked to Chris Bills, which he talked about on the which he put in his soccer notebook right before they announced the sellout, saying that they had like 45,000 deposits down. So I would think that the supporters are going to go really quickly from here on out. I think they want to go through and call people and make sure that if they have a general deposit down, that they understand that being in supporters means standing and yelling and chanting all game and all that kind of stuff. But I believe that they'll be able to sell the rest of those out just from that group of people who didn't get in general but are really interested in the supporters experience.
Yeah, and like you said, not everyone who was interested in having an actual seat is going to want to have the supporters section experience. So yeah, it might take a little bit to actually call through those people, but just judging by how fast the rest of the tickets went, I don't think it's going to be an issue of them actually selling those out. So this morning, this is Monday we're recording this on. We got an email at like 8 something a.m. saying that Austin FC signed its first designated player, which this rumor had been around for what, at least 2 weeks now, right?
Right, at least, because we were going to talk about it on the last, when we interviewed Chris, we were going to talk about the rumor. And then in the interview went long enough, we didn't talk about it. But yeah, it's been sorted out. I think we've discussed it among ourselves. A lot of it it seemed like on the South American side that it was all done. And then Austin FC was just kind of trying to figure out the final details of the contract and then the loan agreement and things like that. But, they all worked it out. We got that. And then we got about 14 minutes before a press conference started, we got an invitation to the virtual press conference also this morning. So that was good to be able to do.
I didn't have time to prepare for, so I was like at work, half listening, half trying to do my job. So I definitely had to go back and read Troy's notes from on the Capital City Soccer Twitter account, and also Chris Bills's thread on it to kind of go back and fill in the fuzzy spots from when I was trying to respond to an email or do something else during that. But yeah, let's just kind of go through the details of who this signing is. So Cecilio Dominguez, he is a 26-year-old Paraguayan left winger. He's coming from Independiente in Argentina, but before then played at Club America in Mexico, which is a huge club, and then played for a couple of Paraguayan teams before then. So it's reported to be a 4-year contract, And the transfer fee, who knows? We've seen it reported as, initially it seemed like it was going to be 6 million. Then I've seen lower than 4 million in other places. On Transfermarkt, it's listed as 4.4 million. Who knows where they get their numbers, but it's it was enough money, and what his salary is going to be was enough to put it over the DP threshold. So he will definitely be a designated player. Claudio Reyna in the press conference today confirmed that Cecilio turned down an offer from Boca Juniors to take this Austin deal. So who knows what the difference in money was like there, but turning down going to a legendary club like Boca Juniors is kind of a big deal. So that's exciting. Between now and when he comes to Austin, Claudio confirmed that he will go on loan to a team in Paraguay. But we don't know who that's going to be yet. The latest rumors we heard, it was going to be Club Guarani, which is where Rodney Redis is playing right now. So I'm kind of hoping that happens so we can see the two of them playing on the same team for the next several months, and have them develop a bit of a rapport, and also just like on a personal level, so they can kind of develop more of a relationship before they move to a foreign country together. And at least they'll have somewhat of a friend in town whenever they come here.
Yeah. On the loan deal, I know Chris Bills asked during the press conference, like the specifics on it, because he was Claudio wasn't really specific about it. And Claudio did say we should have news by the end of the week. So hopefully a few days from now, we'll know what that is. And also on the contract too, this is something you pointed out earlier, like Claudio's really good about giving answers without really giving an answer. On all those things. He did the same thing with Redes too, right? He's like, I'm not here to talk about numbers.
Oh, so. With almost everything. He's very good at giving very vague answers when he doesn't want to give details.
And we just eat it up, right? Because we're so excited about the fact. You're like, yes, Claudio, you're right. You're great. We're just glad to have it. One of the things I noticed this morning was just the way they announced it. And I think the difference was really striking between the hype for the Redes announcement and what they did. So with Dominguez, they had a video. They had a video in both English and Spanish that they put out from the club. Initially when they made the announcement, and then he did a little Instagram video. I guess maybe it was everywhere, or maybe it was on Twitter too. But
yeah, it was on Twitter as well.
Yeah, to have him talk about Austin and his excitement about Austin, and that was a point that Claudio really drove home in the press conference, which is also something that we'll hear about when we play the Juan Delgado interview, about how excited people are about being involved with Austin and about being involved with this club and about helping build it up. And I think maybe that was one of the things that helped sway him away from Boca Juniors, is the chance to move to this city and really being involved in building this thing up from scratch.
Yeah. He Reyna mentioned that. Yeah, like Cecilio is like very up, like he's knowledgeable about MLS and has been paying attention, and like the expansion culture, and yeah, it seems like he is excited to start something from the ground and kind of be a big part of that. So it's exciting that he wants to be here. It's not just a payday for him. It's something that he wants to be a part of.
Yeah, so let me ask you, because you watch more video than I do. So can you talk a little bit about what kind of player he is?
Yeah, so I haven't watched as much video as I would have wanted to, and I will also admit that like I'm watching it's not like YouTube highlight reels, but it is still like I haven't watched an entire game of his yet. It's been clips of like individual actions by him as a player. So mostly I've watched the good ones, right? They don't make highlight reels of his bad plays, but he is a right-footed player, but plays on the left wing. He's kind of like when I talked about Rodney Redis on the show. Rodney likes to move. He's not going to be that winger that just gets to the end line and crosses the ball in. He likes to move inside, combine with other players. Dominguez is similar in that way, that he's not necessarily just going to stay out wide on the wing, but they are quite different players in a lot of other ways. So I think Dominguez is more classy on the ball and in front of goal than Redis is. There's a lot of his goals that he scored. He would either like there's a lot of times where he'd run in behind and play a long ball and make a good move and score, but a lot of them are he'll receive the ball on the edge of the box or like just outside the box, and he'll do that move where he'll like go direct at the defender and then kind of cut inside and do a shot fake and then touch the ball and do a shot fake, and like 3 or 4 guys will kind of jump around him before he takes a shot and like curls it into the far post. So the goals that he does score tend to be pretty impressive, and a lot of fun to watch. So he maybe doesn't necessarily score as often or as consistently as his 2 previous clubs would have wanted him to, but the goals he scores are usually nice to watch. He's also really good. His movement off the ball is really good, like in the box, and then also just kind of knowing when to kind of stay on that backside and when to come inside and make himself available. But seems like a really smart player. He's also like he's not a small guy. He's listed as 5'10", like a substantially sized person. So some of his goals that he scored were headers, just making really smart moves inside the box and making really smart runs and being in the right place at the right time. And so, some of those goals that like it just looks like, oh, the ball just fell on his head, but if you go back and watch the movement he made to get into that position, you see that it's actually a really smart thing that he did to get there. But he's an aggressive player when he has the ball, and yeah, he likes to shoot a lot. One of the like reels I put together was his goals, and then I went back and just watched his shots, and he takes a lot of shots. He likes to shoot the ball and wants to shoot the ball. So maybe I don't know this for a fact. Maybe that's one of the things his previous couple of clubs didn't like so much about him, but he wants to score goals. He wants to get in the box and get on the ball. So I think at his best, he could be a really, really great player to watch.
Yeah, and then Claudio talked about his versatility too, and he talked about how they were going to build all that like into the club as a whole. Because I believe he mentioned that on how he would do with Verde, but it's like he's a winger, but he can also be a forward. And yeah, I guess ultimately it depends upon how they decide to like construct the roster on where he's going to slot in, and maybe he'll be a different from like match to match on where he goes.
Yeah, Reina mentioned that he could be used as a second striker, which, given the skills that I've seen in what little video I've watched, I think he would be a decent fit there. I think his strongest spot is going to be on that wing, kind of cutting in on his right foot there. But there's a lot of, especially at America, a lot of the times like in transition moments, he would move to the center of the field and sometimes get the ball 40 or 50 yards out and take it all the way to goal and score. And so he's capable of a lot of different types of goals, and I think could play in different parts of the pitch and be useful. So I think it should be a priority to put him on that left wing, but in certain instances, or if we bring in certain player that he's going to combine with in a different spot, I think he's more than capable of playing in different places.
Yeah, and you bring up America. I mean, America's where he had both his greatest success and I think his most attention from the average fan. And, I'm assuming you did the same thing. I read like Twitter and Reddit and Instagram and everywhere all day, and there were widely differing opinions about whether it was a good signing or not. But I mean, he had a good run of success there, right? Especially, it was he was successful for a while and made a difference. But there's up and down, right? I mean, with anybody you're going to pay this much, this amount for and sign now. So let's talk a little bit about his cons now.
Yeah, I think you hit the main one from what I can tell is just inconsistency. I think his when he's on, he's really, really good, but just judging by his numbers and what other fans have to say about him, he seems to, maybe he will disappear at times and not always be producing like you would want him to on a consistent level. Roberto Rojas on Twitter had a list of cons, and the things he listed was that maybe he won't always put in the defensive effort that a team would want, and also maybe he has a bit of an attitude, and so he has a tendency to pick up cards, which I saw in some of his goal celebrations that I saw. I could see that a little bit, so that didn't surprise me very much. But that could also be a good thing, right? Like you've heard me talk about I want a couple of players on the team to have a little bit of fight in them. So as long as he keeps it under control, I'm okay with that part of it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's not unnecessary, right? And it doesn't take away from the team. And I mean, hopefully, I think, which we've talked about, and a lot of people have talked about, and I think even Claudio, when he talked about sort of his struggles in Argentina and where he was, and just admitted it, that there's the opportunity for growth, and that he's committed to growth, and he's committed to he might be committed to being a leader in the team. And so maybe this change of pace and change of environment is the right thing for him, and maybe it will lead to like him finally leading up to this potential that everybody has seemed to see. And certainly he's like a super talented and wanted player. And so this hopefully Austin's a perfect situation for him to do that in whatever role that's the best for the club. And I guess it's what we don't know is like what that role is going to be, because I think as we talked about earlier, like we have two players.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned the role and the responsibility that he's going to have, and kind of how Wolf and Reyna were talking about it in the press conference. Is the way they were talking about it made me think a little bit about Bob Bradley and Carlos Vela. Whenever Vela went to LA, Bradley told him, like, I want you to be my star. Like, you need to step up and be the leader of this team on and off the field. And if you don't do that, this isn't going to work. And Vela stepped up to that challenge, and he's clearly super talented and is more talented than Dominguez is. But it kind of seems like that kind of scenario where Reyna recognizes that in talking to Dominguez, that like they both recognize that, okay, that wasn't a great fit for me, but I know why, and I know what I need to do to make this next move a success, and said that he handled that with maturity, like the way that Dominguez was talking about it. He was very mature about the whole experience. And so it doesn't sound like he's making excuses for any of it or saying like, oh, it was their fault or whatever. He knows what went wrong and is excited about this next step and is confident that he can do something better here.
So would you thumbs up, thumbs down? Do you consider this a good signing?
I mean, I think it depends on so much. Like you said, we have two players, and that's one thing I would say to a lot of the people I've seen on Twitter today who are like overreacting and saying like, this is a terrible signing. And it's like, it's all about context, right? Like if you'd have gone back 5 years and told any MLS team that they're going to sign a player who's 26 years old, he's played for Club America and Independiente in Argentina, and he's going to come to your team as a designated player, any team in MLS would have bit your hand off for that one. And it shows how much the league has changed, right? But also, like, yeah, he's not the super huge name, but like neither was like Joseph Martinez wasn't a big name when he came to this league. And so I'm not saying that Dominguez is going to be a superstar for us. I don't know that, but like we're all just guessing. Like we don't know. And so, and it's also two players. And so I think the big telling factor is in however many months from now, when we have a mostly fleshed out roster, if Cecilio Dominguez is still the biggest, like the highest profile player that we've signed, I would say then it's a little bit disappointing. But if he's like the number 2 or number 3 DP on the team, and there's like one or two bigger stars and then a decent cast behind him, I'm happy with it. And like I said, he's clearly a very talented person, and if he puts it all together, I think he could be a really, really good player in this league. But he's never done that consistently in the past, and so that's what brings in the doubt. So yeah, I think the answer is it depends.
Yeah, there's so many people willing to jump to the ending. And one of the things we've heard a lot about is just this idea of the culture and contributing to it, and people wanting to be here. And that's, I think, one of the things that's a lot different from MLS signings from 4 or 5 years ago, where you would like sign a celebrity to sell tickets and they would come in and they weren't committed and they weren't trying to win and they weren't trying to do whatever. And I feel like this is where it's different. Like I feel like Claudio and Josh and the combination together are building this collective of players that really want to be in Austin, that want to mesh together and want to be part of something bigger and want to be part of the culture. And I think that's where maybe they will be able to get the talent out of him that everybody has seen, but hasn't been realized like on a consistent basis before at any other clubs. And so I think that's a really good, I would prefer that over somebody that's just like a giant name that maybe is committed to what we're going to do or maybe isn't, but really isn't going to make Austin FC greater overall.
Yeah. So, so now that we've signed him, we can move on to the next rumor, which there already are some. So
right.
on the next show, we can talk a little bit more about that, but it's kind of fun to, I imagine it'll get exhausting at some point, but right now it's still fun. I'm still enjoying it.
We'll get to we'll have to figure out how the expansion draft works at some point. And then I don't even know how we fill in the rest of the roster. Just like people that show up. I'm not really sure. I think as long as we're doing DPs and like international signings, it's going to be exciting. But
when it gets to expansion draft and like signing free agent players from other MLS teams, like some of those will be exciting. There's been some really great players come from other teams in moves like that, but a lot of them are going to be just like space fillers.
Was it Atlanta that had like the guy from the Charleston Battery that was the goalkeeper that was like their first player? Remember we did the show? Yeah, that. When we get to that will not be that exciting.
So you mentioned a little bit about the culture of the club, and so we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our interview with Juan Delgado. And it's probably one of my favorite parts of that interview. But part of that culture is going to be the facilities, and so the St. David's Performance Center has been it's under construction. It's on track for a spring opening. It's going to house the academy teams as well as the first team, and we'll talk a bit more about that in the interview with Juan Delgado. But I'm really excited for people to hear this interview. Jeremiah, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think he was really he was engaging, and clearly he's committed to it, and clearly he's way smarter about soccer than either of us are. Like I definitely got that out of it. But he's got a good story. Like he's got a good personal story about his path to soccer, and what he's helped create, and then also his sort of commitment to Austin. So I think it's. I look forward to everybody hearing that, and then I look forward to discussing that with everybody online afterwards.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys can hear that, but I really think that I bring up the word culture again, but the culture around the youth team and the exciting things that are happening there, and how much attention and resources that the academy is and will continue to get from people like Claudio Reyna and Josh Wolf is really encouraging on that standpoint. So we'll stop talking about it and just go to it, but let's cut to that interview with Juan Delgado. We wanted to take a minute to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
And we'd also like to encourage you to visit CapitalCitySoccer.com, where Troy Bryant and Zach Mason bring you the latest in Austin FC news, including player rumors, sponsorship updates, ticket updates, and more.
We are very excited to introduce you to our guest for today. It is the technical director for the Austin FC Academy, Dr. Juan Delgado. Juan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Landon. Thank you, Jeremiah. It's an honor for me to be with you today. Thank you.
So I think I want to start off just by kind of giving a brief overview of your resume, because it's very impressive looking back at the work you've done over the last 20 years. So you started off at Verde as a director of coaching and a coach. You're there from 99 to 2006. And you apparently kind of helped build that academy from scratch, then moved on to Valencia. You were the academy technical director there for a couple of years before moving to the Aspire Academy in Qatar, where you were for about 12 years. So, it's a super impressive resume. And so we're very happy to have you here in Austin now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been very lucky, to be honest, to be what I feel to be at the right place at the right time, and that's what I'm feeling right now here. So very humbly speaking, very fortunate to have an impact within the new project.
Yeah, of course. So, Valencia and Villarreal. So I studied abroad in Barcelona when I was in college, and then I went back to Spain and lived in San Sebastian for a few years. And so Spanish soccer really was kind of my first soccer love. Like that's what got me into the game. And so whenever I saw that you were involved with the youth setups at Villarreal and Valencia, I knew that those were highly regarded youth systems. So tell our listeners who some of the players are that have come through systems that you worked in.
Yeah, I was, as I say, very fortunate to see actually the development and somehow impacted, sometimes not directly, but through the coaches. Some of the names that I was fortunate to see when they were youngster was, for instance, Santi Cazorla at Villarreal. In Valencia, the names were actually bigger right now because we have at the time Silva, we have Juan Mata for a while. Isco Alarcon was in the system when I was there. And yeah, most recently, some of the first team and national team. Gaya was a kid that I remember the day we scout him, from a very little small village. And he was actually a striker and ended up now being the left back for the national team. So that's a nice story to be told, And Carlos Soler, I remember now he's also consistently making it to Valencia first team. We used to play him 2 years up, and we was very tiny, but I used to say he was the biggest one on the pitch, So yeah, and very lucky to have been there and to see how they look like, when they are 14, 13, 15, 17-year-old. So you can compare later on what with the talent we have right now here. So that's something as I said, I feel fortunate to have been part of.
How about your own background? What did you? How did you become a coach? What was your upbringing and where did you play?
yeah, I used to play for the youth systems first, and my hometown is a very little town next to Villarreal, and I played for them for a while in the U19. Got injured badly on my knee. 3 surgeries later, I decided to stop. I wouldn't make it pro, to be honest with you. I knew that too. So, but since soccer was my life, I was committed, and I found somehow my call, of how can I could provide value to the world, and I tried to educate myself as much as possible. So I knew that not being a former pro, the only way I could add value would be trying to learn, and trying to position myself as an expert on the youth development area. So that's why I try, as I say, I study sports science, I study sports psychology, is my master's degree as well. I did my PhD on football or soccer in this case. So yeah, that's a little bit a summary of myself. So not being good enough, having an injury, and finally finding the excuse to say, okay, let's study and prepare myself so I might be able to make my life doing what I love to do.
So going back to your specific role here at Austin FC, can you tell us what are the specific responsibilities of your role, and how do those differ from say what Tyson is going to be doing?
Yeah, I report to Tyson, so he's the general manager, and he oversees the entire operation of the academy. So I basically try to help him from a technical perspective. So in this sense, my main role is what related to the training methods and the coaches' education. I would just to summarize it. But of course, trying to impact the entire strategy. So trying to bring some of my experiences back in Spain and in Qatar, that, as I say, humbly speaking, were quite successful. So trying to support Tyson on the technical aspect of the games or the player development, I would say. And in this case, one of the key aspects and what I feel, we are quite unique is the support we have uh, from the top, from Claudio as a sporting director and from Jos as well, They've been very supportive from day one. They share their knowledge. Jos has been on top, sharing the model, the style of play they want to apply, the language they want to use with players. So this is something I have never seen happening that closer. I had relationship with first team or first team managers back in in Spain and in Qatar, but not as close as here. Not as open. And it's been a very good experience so far. And again, this is going to make the difference. And there are plenty of studies out there that have proven that the main factor to produce soccer players in a youth system is the support from first team. So you could have the best system in the world that if these kids they are not given the chance to play, they will never make it. So in this particular sense, I think we are in a very well position, in a very good position to be unique.
Yeah, that's something that stood out to me whenever Claudio was hired. I started doing some research into his time at NYCFC and listening to some interviews and doing some reading about who he is. I knew who he was as a player, but I was looking into who he was as a sporting director. And what really stood out to me is how much of a passion he has for youth development and trying to bring up these young players. So yeah, I imagine that's something that you're pretty pleased with.
Totally.
So what all can you give us an idea of how you'll be interacting with Claudio and with Josh and kind of that bridge to the first team? What will your role be in that, as far as like that connection from the youth development pipeline into the first team?
Yeah, well, the first connection is Tyson as a general manager. We have weekly meetings with them both, and with Josh the relationship is even closer I would say almost on a daily basis, because he comes to training, and he sees what we are doing. He provides feedback to us, and basically, as I said, the idea is to emulate and to organize the training process or the development process according to what the first team aimed to be or to become. Of course, there are differences because first team main goal is to win games, whether our main goal is to teach the game for one day, prepare these players to win games. So in this sense, we have, I would say, less impact from the next opponent when we're planning things. So we can be more pedagogical, we can have cycles, we can, review, and it's a more medium long-term thing. Whether when you are in a first team setup, the next game is impacting your planning. Your weekly plan is affected by what you're gonna face next Saturday or next Sunday. So that might be basically the difference and the way we are working together.
Yeah, and I did want to ask a little about the day to day. So what does that look like? Like how many days a week are you with the players, and what does a day of training look like? Because I imagine it's very, very different than like what would you would do with the first team squad, like you mentioned.
Yeah, the main difference is we don't have the boys with us the entire day, which actually is the biggest constraint. But we do have them normally 4 times a week for 2 hours. So 2 hours and 15 minutes is the window we have. Normally, we dedicate 1 hour and a half for practice, but the other half an hour is for mentoring purposes. So we have individual interviews with them. We review the individual goals. We do have what we call it the classroom, where we show them concepts on the screen, discuss different aspects of the game, all other topics that nutrition, mindset, tools that they might utilize, in a high performance environment later on. So that's basically what we do. 2 hours a day, let's say 4 times during the week, from Monday to Thursday. We give them Friday off, to let them be youngsters, and enjoy, and give family a break too. And then we normally play on Saturdays, and occasionally we're gonna play Saturdays and Sundays as well. So that would be basically a normal timetable for the players.
So can you give us a little bit of an overview of what the academy looks like now? We had Tyson Wall on the show on our last podcast probably like a year and a half ago, and a lot's changed since then. So can you just kind of give us an overview of what the academy actually looks like right now?
Yeah, it has been a big evolution. Tyson started on a solo, I would say, mode, together with Junro, with the coach that we have right now at the U13. They started with the U14 last year, and we have grown now to have 11 full-time employees in the academy, 11 coaches and trainers and SNCs, and also we have 3 more interns working with us. So things have escalated, and yeah, it's very nice, to be honest, because we've been able to gather a very diverse group of coaches. I believe we have 7 nationalities, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We have Colombians, Venezuelans, Spanish, Japanese. Who do I missing? I'm missing Mexicans, of course. So it's a very, very diverse and very interesting group, with different skills, different backgrounds. And I'm very optimistic that we have formed a very healthy, knowledgeable, and strong team. So that was one of our main concerns, to be honest. And when I've been discussing for more than a year with Tyson from when I before to come here, and we both agree that human capital and hiring the right people, it was the key aspect of the entire project. So we have taken a lot of time, and I'm very glad. I'm very glad with the team we have been able to form.
So you mentioned human capital, and it reminded me, in preparing for this, I found I found this interview that you and Tyson did. It was like a presentation type thing that you were doing, and you mentioned the human capital aspect and how pleased you were that Austin FC is really investing in that right now. And I think you mentioned it in comparing your experience in Qatar and your experience at Austin FC, and you said that Qatar was building a rocket ship without any astronauts. So
that's true.
Can you expand upon that a little bit, of the differences in your experience there and what you've seen here so far?
Yeah, that's the one I've been very lucky, to be honest, Landon, because that's the 3rd time I'm gonna start a project from scratch. It happened to be like that in Villarreal back in 1999. Later in Qatar, 2007, with Aspire and the QFA, and now in 2020 here. So, yeah, the thing I always make this joke about Qatar is because we build this huge infrastructure, and we start hiring people from everywhere, and we end up having this system that it was too big for the number of players we have. It ended up working very well because it was very successful, and we of course had a lot of resources. But what I realized is sometimes when you have too many professionals on a system, there is a point that you just add in noise, and it's hard managing because you tend to lose the focus on the main thing, and the main thing is to keep the main thing being the main thing. So in this case here, we've been much more organically growing, and I feel that that's the right way to go. So we are, as I said, a group of people very committed with a clear vision, with the dream of putting a player on a 2026 World Cup, which is something we very connected to, and I think we are, as I said, we are in a position to make the difference, and that's the dream, and that's the vision, and that's what we want to accomplish.
So how many levels of players do y'all have right now at the academy? Like which age groups?
Do we have we have around 60 players, and we have the older group is a U15, so they born in 2006. Then we have the O7s, which are the U14s, and the O8s, the U13s. Plus we have what we call the COE, which is a sort of feeder platform. So we are preparing for next season. Next season, we want to expand with a couple of more teams. So our U15 will become U17, and we also want to create a U12 underneath the U13 we have in right now. So what we do with this platform is we are assessing and scouting the local talent at these early age groups. So we're going to have a year to find out and to form this new U12. So that's basically the way we are structured right now.
Gotcha. And you said they've been in training for about a month. Do y'all have a plan for when they actually start playing competitive matches, or is that all dependent upon the situation in the world right now?
There is a tentative calendar out there to begin middle of September. We hope that this will go ahead, but it's still not confirmed. But the idea is yes. I mean, it seems since practice is open now, of course we're taking all the protocols and all the measurements, and we've been very conscious on how to operate on regards COVID-19. But it looks there might be a room to start the competition middle of September.
So coming from your background in Spain, and it's a really highly regarded soccer culture there. Coming to the United States and in MLS, has it been an adjustment period for you? Are there any things that you found strange about the league that you didn't expect? Because MLS is kind of a strange league. It's got a bunch of weird rules, and there's some very interesting things about this league. So what of those things has struck you since you've been here?
I've been trying to learn as fast as possible. As I mentioned before, I've been in touch with Tyson for more than a year. So actually, I visited Austin last year on July. So I've been trying to learn what are the differences and the specifics of not only the MLS, but soccer in general here in the States, and the youth sports environment, which is a very unique one. So to me, what it was at the beginning hard to swallow was all these college sports, and and the incompatibility. This is what I didn't find logical to me. How do you have to choose one way or another? So that's something that, again, I'm new and I'm trying to understand better. I see the beauty of college sports, and the opportunity for people to gain scholarships and have a degree, and and become a better citizen through this pathway. What I still need to understand is why you cannot do both. Because in Europe you can go and play and study. So I think that could be something that might benefit the system in the future. Another particularity here are distances. Distances are huge. Yesterday I was checking out, and Texas is almost the same size as Spain, the entire country.
I think it's slightly bigger.
Yeah, I don't know which one is bigger, but it's like there is a 15% difference on surface, and we are 47 million, and I think Texas is around 32 million population. So very similar. So I was trying to explain to my wife these demographics last night, and I said, imagine we are in Spain and we only have Valencia, Barcelona, and Real Madrid. So this is what is Texas like in terms of soccer. You have 3 MLS teams and then the rest. So that's challenging in a sense. And I think one of the 2 challenges we face as a nation is the competition piece. So how can we play the best against the best? And that's what MLS is trying to tackle right now by forming these new leagues, by having the U17s in future playing against other MLS teams, and that will enhance and elevate the level of the game. When you play in Spain in a U12 for Villarreal or for Valencia or for Barcelona, you play 100 games a year, and out of these 100 games, 30 are very competitive. So you play Espanyol Barcelona, you play Levante, you play Atletico Madrid, all these teams, So that's one of the pieces of the puzzle that we need to address. And basically this is one, and the second one is the talent identification. So how could we identify players at very early stage and nurture them, because the more the science is looking at the development of talent, they find out that deliberate practice is a key aspect, So well-structured, good teachers, good systems are making the difference. And the problem is you find a talented player when he's 17 and he's not been in the right environment, you have lost a lot of training opportunities, and yes, you can still help him, but not as the level that you would be able to help him if you detect him when he was 8 or 7.
Right.
So that's, let's say, dimensions is one of the things. One of the aspects that I feel that we are well positioned in Central Texas is the passion for the game, which is something, for instance, we didn't have in Qatar. They didn't want to become a soccer player. They didn't have the desire, the hunger, the mindset, because they all, most of them were wealthy So in here, we have the talent. I found the passion on the kids. Now we need to find the inspiration. And you've been in San Sebastian, and I think it's a very, very appealing example. So you cannot see a Barcelona or Real Madrid t-shirt down the streets in San Sebastian. Everybody wears Real Sociedad, and everybody knows somebody who's in the club or has played or has an uncle that was a former player.
Yeah.
So
you see the players walking around town as well, because it's a small town. So you just see the players everywhere.
You see the players everywhere. You see the youngsters at the training facility. That they see the kids or the youngers that they made it the previous year were changing in the same place, in the same locker room. So this sense of belonging and I'm feeling that the idol is close enough that I can be the next one, that's the most powerful tool we can use. So we need to find a way to inspire these kids we have now in the system. Talent is there, support from top to bottom is there. So now is our responsibility to make them dream, to allow them to dream.
Yeah, I imagine having the nice new stadium will be one of those tools to use for inspiration, as well as the new training center where, as I understand, the youth teams will be sharing that training center with the first team, correct?
That's very correct, and that's very true what you're saying right now. So I think that's going to inspire them and providing this opportunity to see the first team, and this, as I said, it's all about imagining and making them dream to be one day the ones down on the grass, So that's gonna make a big difference when first team start playing. I can feel the vibes on the city. Everybody is looking forward to it. So
oh yeah.
So that the concept of idol is very powerful, and we need all together. And you guys have also a part to be played, on creating this idol. So we all need to be aware of that, because this is going to have a big impact on what we're doing at the academy level.
On a more personal note, you've been in Austin for not a super long time. When did you come to Austin?
I came with my family in February. Beginning of February, yeah.
So how are you liking it so far?
We love it. We actually came last year, as I think I mentioned before. We came last year to make the decision to move, and we meet in person with Tyson, and we stay here for 10 days, I believe. So going around and trying to imagine how would be our lives here, as I have two daughters and a beautiful wife that follows me everywhere I go. So he's listening. That's why I try to be gentle. We loved it from day one, and actually from the other options we had at the time, it was always number one. And again, when I ask other colleagues, I have a friend of mine working for the national team here in the US, Nico Stevet, who was the one making the introduction to me.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and he was speaking very highly about the people that is going to be involved in the club and about the city. So it was an easy decision. And we love nature. We've been 12 years without it in the Middle East. Yeah. So yeah, the first week we were stopping by every flower, and every eagle that we saw flying on the sky. So yeah, we just love it. So we think it's a right place to raise our two daughters, and a place that we can enjoy a lot.
I think there's actually a couple of Spanish restaurants in town if you ever need any Spanish food. I don't know how good. Actually, I've been to one of them. There's a Basque bar downtown
All right.
called Calimocho.
That's a very appealing name.
But I went to it and I was skeptical, having lived in the Basque country, but the food is quite good. I thought it was pretty good. So check that out if you ever need a little touch of Spain here.
I will. No, that's definitely something that is in my to-do list.
All right. Well, I think that's a good spot to end. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really look forward to seeing what kind of work you can do here in Austin, and look forward to seeing one of your academy players play in the 2026 World Cup.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. And as I said, that's you guys play a part of it as well. And I think if we all push and we all envision that is going to happen. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Juan.
Thank you very much.
All right. We want to thank Juan Delgado again for joining us. We hope you guys enjoyed that interview. There's an event that we wanted to pitch real quick before we sign off. So Jeremiah, take it away.
Yeah, so on Wednesday, the 26th, since I never know how the time works in the podcast world, but it would be 2 days from now for us, but tomorrow for everybody else, the Austin FC and the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce are going to have a public event at 4:00. It's a live panel on inclusion and allyship for the LGBTQIA community. And so it's an interesting panel. I think it's a really interesting thing for the club to dive into. So there's a member of the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, the Austin Black Pride co-founder and president, the Black Trans Leaders of Austin, and then somebody from Anheuser-Busch, their community connections manager. So it's a really good group of people to talk about how we all come together in support and allyship of the LGBTQIA community. And so I think it's a really, these social issues are a good thing for the club to lean into. And I look forward to hearing the discussion.
Yeah, relevant to fan culture as well, right? Like we want the fan culture and the stadium experience to be an inclusive and open one. And that's another thing that was talked about on the Zoom call with McConaughey, is like, how do we create that culture? And he said, like, you have to start now. And like, I think that's happening, but it's essentially like self-policing and kind of self-regulating that, and building a culture where that is how it works. Like, if you're doing something that's not inclusive or hateful towards people, it needs to be very, very clear that, like, that's not how we do things here. If you want to do that, you need to go somewhere else. And so, yeah, I think it's relevant to the fan experience. So hopefully we can get some good discussions out of this and learn a few things. But yeah, join in on that if you want to. You can find the event on Facebook, or if you just type in Pride in the ATX into Google, you'll find it posted in a few different places. So we will be back in a couple of weeks. We're working on a few different guest angles, so I would like to tell you who we're going to have on, but we don't know yet. We'll have some really interesting guests to talk to, and maybe some more player rumors and who knows whatever else we're going to talk about. But yeah, we'll be back then. Until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.